Hey everybody, and welcome back for another video. In today's video, we are talking about the new movie, The Monkey, that came out this past weekend. If you are not sure of what this movie is, this was a movie where Stephen King made a short and somebody thought it was really cool, so they decided to expand on it and then make a full-length feature film out of it. Um, from what I've heard, Stephen King absolutely loved this movie, so our hopes was that it was going to be very, very good. Uh, what we're going to do here is give you some of our thoughts with non-spoilers first, and then we'll give the movie a rating, and then we'll go ahead and get a little bit more into the movie itself. Um, I am going to, I guess I'll go first. And my opinion of the monkey is that it sucked very, very much. Um, I had way too high of expectations because I think 2 or 3 days before we saw this movie, I watched Longlegs, which is another movie by the same people that made The Monkey, and it is a night and day difference of the type of horror. Like Longlegs was very much atmospheric and creepy, whereas this was almost, I would say, comedic with its kills.
I
It
will say, I'm gonna stop you right there for just a brief second. If you Google the monkey, Google says that it's a horror slash comedy.
which is so stupid. It feels like a spoof movie. It actually, this isn't a spoiler, it's just how the film is structured. It felt very much like a spoof of a Christmas story because this movie starts with our main characters being very young, and the adult version of the character is talking about what's happening in the kid's life and narrating it just like a Christmas story was. Um, but here, like the first half of the movie is when he's a kid, second half is when he's an adult. So I don't know. I thought from the get-go it was kind of weird from the opening sequence because there really wasn't a lot of tension. It was kind of very awkward with how the characters were interacting with one another. I think I will say though, after that initial scene, it kind of prepares you for what is to come with the rest of the film as far as the silliness. I wasn't aware that it was supposed to be a comedy horror film. Um, I think looking back, if I would have known that, I would have been a lot less excited for this movie. I really don't like comedy horror. Like, I don't mind comedy in horrors, but if there's one thing that really drives me nuts, it's when people go to horror films and laugh really loud, and then, it really takes any and all of the horror element away from the other people in the crowd. So, with them pushing it to be even more funny, I think that kind of pulled me out of the movie as well. So, what do you think?
I liked the movie. I wasn't anticipating it to be a comedy, or I didn't know that going into it. So it was kind of like a fun little surprise for me, I guess, or a fun little show ruiner for you, so I'm sorry. Um, there were pieces of it that did not make sense necessarily, or like, who are these characters? We don't really know who they are, so it seems kind of odd that they're here. Like, just maybe not enough storytelling of like who certain characters were, so they seemed kind of out of place, or like not really knowing what's going on, not really caring about certain characters because you just don't know who they are. Um, I I thought that the kills were um fun or funny, which is kind of what that's supposed to be, right? So I feel like that part they hit the way that they wanted to. Um, the audience in our group was a bit flamboyant. I would agree with that. I don't know. It's movies like this that I almost wish we'd just see like at home, because then we wouldn't have to deal with everybody thinking that things are 10 times funnier than what they really are.
Oh, regardless of that, I would say watch this at home.
Um, I clearly did not hate it as much as you did, but I thought it was an all right film. I don't think it was fantastic. It kind of gave me Lisa Frankenstein vibes, how it's supposed to be like spooky, creepy, but still kind of funny, or awkward funny. Um,
I will tell
I don't
you,
know.
Elijah Wood is in this movie, and I thought, like, of all movies, why would you pick to be in this movie? Especially since I thought his character was very stupid. He makes so much money off of the Lord of the Rings. It's like, why? Why did you do this? And I really didn't like the performances out of the majority of the characters either. I didn't like the main character when he was an adult. I didn't like the main character when he was a kid. I thought his brother was kind of like overly written to be a piece of crap. Like he was a really mean brother, and it was just like it was all. I mean, maybe I just haven't been around that root of kids, but it just didn't seem to me like that kid would be the way that he was. It was a little over the top, in my opinion. Um,
I thought it made more sense when they were kids, but they were kind of awkward as adults, like just overly cautious or overly flamboyant, just over the top with how they were acting a little bit.
it was really weird when they were adults, especially. So one thing I find interesting. Oh, wow, I guess he did. So I'm looking at the IMDb, and I did not think that when they were young, it was the same actor. I thought when they were doing the young version and the older version, the young version was two kids and the older version was the one actor. But no, that kid plays both of them.
Yeah, I didn't know that with a kid either. That's crazy.
Hmm, I don't know. I don't know what more I need to really say as far as non-spoiler. I guess, like I said, the tone of the movie is so. Let me give it one positive that's non-spoiler. I'll give it credit here. I think when they were when the monkey was going through its sequence, because the way that this monkey works is that, if it bangs the drums, then, it's someone's gonna die, basically. And when it goes to do its sequence, you have to wind up the key in the back, and then its little drumstick spins, and then it dramatically stops, and then the monkey, bangs on the drum. I feel like a lot of that stuff was really well done. Like they really, that's where the music and the quote unquote tension, if there was any in this film, was
All the
at.
suspense.
Yes, because the way that they filmed the monkeys sequences, I thought that was really good. Everything else did not work for me. Like it's hard for me to say what I have to say about the film because now knowing it was on purpose to be a horror comedy, and I feel like I can't really rip into it too much about being like weird comedy because that's what it was supposed to be. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but I'm at the same time, even without seeing that on Google, like you could pick that up as soon as they started having some of their jokes along the way. I thought that I personally I enjoyed the jokes. I thought they were fun. Like for instance, the mom uh talking about not wanting to go in the boys' room once she saw something that disturbed her and or again, I really liked the mom character. She also said something about like, yeah, I love waiting on you hand and foot because that's what teenage boys make their moms do, you know? And I don't know. I thought they played up on some of that stuff. And there's more than just picking on teenage boys, but I feel like they played up on some of those style jokes and I thought it was funny.
I would say there was a couple of things that I thought was funny in this film. It wasn't like all of it was terrible, but there was just not enough for me to be like, yeah, that was good. But like the whole project. Um, yeah, I guess unfortunately, I think this movie is in the running for my worst movie of 2025, and maybe it's just because I had the wrong expectations, but I think I'm sitting at a 2 out of 10 for
Ooh,
the month.
ouch.
And the reason why I give it 2 points instead of the one is because for what it's supposed to be, I can understand the way that the film is made, but it definitely wasn't for me. Like when I think of Stephen King, I think of like scary, with some comedy throughout. Like the movie It. Those kids are hilarious, but the overarching feel of those movies is that you are creeped out by the clown. This monkey, I was cheering for the monkey to kill all of these idiots in the film because it just did not work for me. I did not care about any of the heroes just because the way they were acting, the way it was, being played out and presented to us, I just thought they're all idiots. I wish the monkey would have won. Well, I mean, there's no real winner in this movie, I would say. That's not a spoiler, but I
I'm at
wanted
a
to see it
six for this film.
at a six.
I I feel like it was above average a little bit, but not a ton, and here's why. Is I feel like we've had so many movies that try this style of comedy and it just falls flat and the lines aren't very good. I feel like we had good lines in this one. I feel like the blood or gore or whatever, of the silly killings, I feel like those were creative and fun and the anticipation of you saw that something bad was about to happen. You knew that somebody was about to be no more and it still was like, "Oh my gosh," like that kind of thing.
I
Where
don't
I'm
know.
definitely some
The one thing I was gonna say is like when I watched the trailer, I did not get that vibe that this was gonna be some sort of comedy. I feel like the movie, like Scary Movie or Haunted House, I feel like those movies convey, hey, this is about horror, but it's gonna be for the comedy of it. Whereas I feel like this one did not convey that to me.
I
So I
don't
guess
think I've
that could be
even
a
seen the
difference.
trailer for this one, to be honest.
I'm pretty sure I saw it two or three times.
So I mean the trailer being misleading, that is not the best. I wouldn't appreciate that either. I didn't know this was going to be like comedy style movie, but for what it is, I thought it was pretty decent. The reason why I'm only at a six and not higher than that, even though I did enjoy the film, is really more so when the people are adults and the acting styles and the motivations of those characters. It feels like some of it is a bit extreme or forced. And there's some ancillary characters that I just didn't really like and thought was stupid. Some costume designing that I thought was really poorly choiced. That was probably supposed to be funny, but to me it just was stupid. One of the people's wigs I thought was awful. Um,
There was.
I'm sure it was that way on purpose. Like guaranteed it was like that just because they thought it would be funny. But to me it wasn't funny. It was just stupid. I feel like there's some tweaks with that and the actors and the motivations, and I guess that's partially writing too. But I think that those things, if they had buttoned those up a little bit more, I could have given this movie maybe more like an eight or something like that. I don't know that it could quite get it to a 10 without some serious work, but for what it was, I'm at a six.
I was gonna say also, I feel like there was a character that was absolutely wasted as far as an actor's point of view.
Adam
Is that
Scott.
what's that?
Adam Scott.
Is that our Step Brothers guy?
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Adam Scott was wasted in this. Like, not like he was drunk, but he was wasted in this movie as far as the potential he could have brought. I would have much rather seen him play the main character than what he did. He is in
Oh,
this movie for like 2 minutes.
absolutely. He could have done a much better job as the main character.
Yeah, like I don't mean to hate on this guy. What has this guy been in? The actor's name is Theo James. That is our main lead and plays all these ridiculous roles. I definitely recognize him from something.
He's from the Divergent series.
Oh, that's it then. Yep, because he was um the heartthrob,
Yeah, it's been too long since I've seen that to really remember him from that necessarily, but
right?
he also was in, oh, I guess that's a voice acting thing, not a acting thing. Like you wouldn't recognize his face from it. I was gonna say Castlevania, but
Yeah.
it's voice acting, never mind. Let's go into some spoilers.
All right, here we go. So this movie opens up, and remember, I had said, this movie kind of sets you up with the first couple minutes, and if you're really not hooked from these first couple minutes, you're gonna hate the rest of the movie because it's this way the whole movie. And so we have, can you say his name again?
Adam Scott.
Adam Scott. So we have his character. I'm trying to find the name of his character even.
Petey.
Um, Petey?
PT.
Oh, Petey. Oh,
The guy
Captain
named his
Petey.
kid after his dad.
Captain Petey is what his name is. And so he like busts into a pawn shop and he's trying to get rid of the monkey. Okay. And the guy behind the counter is like saying, we don't take toys as returns, and he's like, don't call it a toy, because Captain Petey is legitimately afraid of this monkey. He's clearly experienced some time with it, and he's trying to dump it off to the next person. And so between their discussion, eventually, did the pawn shop guy like wind it up or something? Because it did, come down and strike the drum.
No, it had already been wound and the arm was stuck up because it was waiting to do the
Oh,
final kill blow.
right. Um, so yeah, like the monkey does that. Captain Petey tries to get away, and like was it the pawn shop dude's intestine like rips out of his stomach?
Yeah, so there was like a scuba diver costume, or not costume, but like uniform with a
Yeah.
harpoon gun. And because a mouse chewed a cord, it dropped something to make the harpoon gun trigger, and it harpooned into this guy's stomach. And then when the monkey did the final drop of the drumstick, the harpoon retracted with all of his intestines.
Which is like a very, very silly, like the scene, it's not filmed as if it's like a Saw film where it's supposed to be, you know, very grotesque and bloody. It was more like Evil Dead where it was comedic. And so we see that and the Captain Petey character takes the monkey, takes him outside, and then tries to just light him on fire with a flamethrower. And then that's the end of his storyline, basically. And like I said, it's only a couple minutes. And if you don't like this first scene, the rest of the movie is toast for you. You might as well walk out.
See,
Um,
what I didn't like about this though was that we don't ever find out what happens to him. The
right.
mom says to the kids later, however long later, we don't even know how much time has passed, that the dad just skipped town to, go not be with them anymore. But like, we don't get that vibe from him. We don't get that he got killed from the monkey. We don't get that he disappeared. Like he's just not there anymore. And we've got nothing else to go off of. And it seemed like an abrupt ending for his character.
Yeah, and which kind of made me upset a little bit, like me knowing that I really like Adam Scott as an actor and knowing that his character just kind of got shafted like that. I just really didn't like it that happened. Because
I think it's because he's in another show right now where he probably didn't have much time to give this film, because he is busy with, oh, what is it called? Severance.
Severance. Yeah.
So I have a feeling that's why he maybe took on a more minor role in this type of film versus being the lead.
My guess is he really wanted to be in a Stephen King film and, showed up for a day. But yeah. So we don't really know what happened to him. All we know is that, the monkey kind of like passes along and eventually ends up back at the mom's, like the wife's house in a box. And that's eventually how our um, younger versions of our main characters find the monkey. They go snooping through their dad's stuff. They really didn't know their dad, so what they do is they go in his closet and see all the different clothing he has because he was a captain, and then they just kind of try to paint a picture of what their dad, used to do. It's the only thing they can do to try to make a connection with him. And so while they're doing this is when they find this box, and the box has the monkey inside, and then they start playing with it. Uh,
I think the first death is the babysitter, who gets her head chopped off at a hibachi grill. Our next
oh,
death is
yeah.
with the two boys. There's two, so right, they're twins. one of them is kind of more nerdy. One of them is like the cool kid at school, so he's always picking on his nerdy brother. Nerdy brother hates him because, it's like he's ruining his life. So he wants the monkey to kill his brother. But the monkey doesn't take requests. The monkey just takes whoever he wants. And so he's like, "Oh, I wish my brother would be dead." And so he turns the key and the brother comes home and then the mom's dead because I guess she like slit her throat while she was making pancakes or something like that. We don't really see what caused her throat to be slit. Just all of a sudden her throat's slit and she's falling on the floor dead and there's blood squirting everywhere. So kids have to go live with somebody else because dad's MIA and mom's now dead and babysitter's now dead. So they go to live with their aunt and uncle who are total weirdos who basically explained we never wanted kids, but here you are, so you can go live in the attic. Well,
Yeah, and even the uncle was kind of like, like you said, we never wanted kids, so probably be bad at it, so just, deal with it because we're gonna do our best.
mhm.
He was very weird about it.
Well, and you can tell that they're not very good at it because they just got home from their mom's funeral and the the aunt just goes, "Well, sleep tight." Like she doesn't bother to see if they're okay or talk to them at all about the fact that their mom just died.
Yeah.
So, I believe our next death is the uncle. He has some sort of like weirdo hunting accident because he's like a big hunter, but not a typical hunting accident. It was something really strange. All of these deaths are super strange, weird, mysterious accidents. Like not somebody, purposefully killing somebody else, but just a weird coincidence of an accident.
Which his death in particular is when they re-emphasize this comedic side of the film because it was like, we saw the funeral of the first couple people that died, and then when the uncle went off to the hunting thing, and as soon as he died, it was his face at the funeral and hearing that funeral music again and seeing what do you call him? A bishop, preacher, whoever he was,
Yeah.
the dude that seemed like he had no idea what he was doing, like it was his first time ever. We just see him constantly over and over again. Um, yeah.
It'd be like if you'd
Keep on.
pick someone who'd never been to church before and said, "All right, get up there and say some words. You're the priest now."
Yeah, and it was kind of their attempt at comedy.
Yep.
Carry on.
So at this point, I think the boys finally realized like this thing's trouble. We need to lock it up, throw it in the well. Before they went to live with the aunt and uncle, the nerdy brother, I think his name is Hal, he tried to chop up the monkey and throw it away, but the monkey still followed them to their aunt and uncle's house because it, I guess, teleports.
I do want to point out one other thing here too that we didn't mention, and that is so Hal, like we've been saying, he's like the nerdy kid and um, really doesn't like his brother. And so when he was starting to pick up that the monkey had some sort of connection to these deaths, he had wound the monkey up and he wanted it to kill his brother. But what happened was instead the monkey killed his mom. And this
Yep.
ends up being quite the baseline for what happens later in the film.
Right. Which the other brother, Bill, he didn't like watch him wind it up, but he kind of puts the pieces together later because they figure out that whoever's turning the key is never the one to die.
Right. He knew he didn't do
So,
it.
yeah, so if the mom turned the key, it couldn't have been her because she's the one who died. So it had to have been somebody else, which meant it had to be Hal. So that's how he pieces that together later. Um, but at this point in the story, right, they chain up the monkey back in the box and they throw it in the well. And so we fast forward 25 years later. There's been nothing going on. Everything's been fine. We find out that Hal has a son whose name is Petey, who he named after his dad, the pilot who went missing or just, left their family, I guess. Um, I'm not sure why you'd name your kid after your deadbeat dad that left you, when you were a child, but I guess that was the connection he wanted to make to feel closer to his dad. But he's so scared of everything going to crazy, even though nothing's happened for 25 years. And this kid is, I don't know, a teenager, like 12, 14, something like
I
that.
would say 13 or 14
Um, he only sees them once a year
a
for a
year.
week. So 1 year a week, that's it. And that's at the dad's request because he's scared that the kid's gonna get hurt because what if the monkey comes back? And so this is, I think, where Jeremy and I were talking about the adult characters being over the top. Like he just seems way overly cautious and paranoid and freaked out. And at this point in the film, it's kind of over nothing. And it just seems really extreme to only want your kid for 1 week out of the year when nothing's happened for the last 25 years and the kid's only like 14 or something like that, you know? So, I mean, you moved on with your night life enough to have a kid and to be involved in a relationship and stuff like that and to fall in love with somebody and then here you are just totally 180 even though nothing's changed. It just seems really weird. Um,
Yeah, I remember when we were in the theater and I was watching a lot of these scenes, I was thinking to myself like, like I didn't know his name, but Theo James, I was thinking to myself because he plays the older version of these two kids. He's definitely been around for a while. He's not an actor that sucks at acting. So I feel like the writing had to have been where a lot of this stuff was not meshing with me. So I don't know. Like I said, they got that one extra point out of me because they stayed with the status quo of what they set out to do, but at the same time, I just didn't agree. But
yeah. So they're doing their like 1 week of bonding because the mom of Petey wants her new boyfriend, husband, whoever he is, who's I guess like the Jesus of dads, who's written all these how to be a dad books.
which is
Uh,
Elijah Wood,
Yep, which is Elijah Wood. She wants him to adopt Petey to be his dad, right? Petey the kid, I guess Petey Jr., if you will. Um, so this is like their one last hurrah. It's supposed to be fun, and instead, what do they have to do? Well, Hal gets a call from his brother Bill that the aunt is dead, and he has to go through her estate.
I will
Well,
tell
we
you,
as the audience know,
I was gonna say I was very disappointed when I found out. So when Hal was picking up his son Petey, Petey had said that they were gonna go to um what was it, Horror Heaven or something like that. It was an amusement park.
or Haven, I think, yeah.
And I was like, oh my God, this is gonna be so cool. I can't wait to see this theme park. And then they never go to it. It's like, come on. The one thing I wanted to see out of this movie, aside from it just not being my thing, I was really hoping to see what this would look like, but we didn't get that. Instead,
Yeah.
we got a lot of scenes at a motel.
It seemed like after they went through all of their emotional drama that they should have had like their one last hurrah, like their last day together at the theme park, but they never got there.
Instead of the way that they ended it, yeah.
Yep. So we know we as the audience get to see that I guess the reason why the aunt that they grew up with is dead is because she had a yard sale. At the yard sale, the monkey mysteriously appeared. Nobody noticed it. And some kid with this awful, awful wig. It was horrible. He was supposed to be like a rock and roll kind of dude, I guess, because he had the bangs covering his eyes and stuff. You never see his eyes. I think that's the vibe they were going for, but the wig was just so bad. It was stupid. Um,
That dude has an amazing first name.
who is it?
The actual actor's name is Rohan Campbell. Like from Lord of the Rings, Rohan.
It's
That's
pretty
so
powerful.
cool.
But anyway, so he goes to the estate sale and buys the monkey. And what's this is another one of the things that really drove me nuts is we don't know who this kid is, but he goes home, he's talking to his mom. It kind of reminds you of Bill because he seems like kind of a cool kid. He's got what looks like a twin brother who's the more nerdy type. The mom looks very similar to Hal and Bill's mom. It was really confusing. Like it felt like it was going back in time, like that's how they got the monkey or something. They didn't really explain who these people were. But long story short, I guess what you piece together at the very end is that he sold the monkey to Bill because Bill had an ad in the paper looking for the monkey. Um, so We focus on the aunt for a minute. Do you want to go ahead and describe what happens to her? How she meets her end?
Yeah, I was doing a little bit of research on Mr. Rohan Campbell, and I think if I'm reading this right, he was the lead in Halloween Ends. So like that creepy dude that had like the connection to Michael Myers.
Yeah,
I Yeah, that's him. Crazy.
weird.
Um
And now here he is at the monkey wearing a
so
horrible wig.
yeah, so the way the ant dies is so stupid. I thought this was like it's one of those things when you watch a horror movie and you're like there's no way someone could be that stupid. And she has this sequence of things that happens where like her house is for sale, okay? And what was the thing that she sprayed on her face on accident?
Okay, so she heard a noise from the basement. She went down in the basement. The stair broke out from under her, and instead of her ankle being caught in like a bear trap or something, 'cause remember her deceased husband was a hunter. He
Oh
was
yeah,
also a fisherman, and
she
so she
fell.
fell face first into like a box full of fishing lures. So she had fishing lures stuck all over her face. Well, after she got them all out, what do you clean a wound with? Well, some people clean it with rubbing alcohol. So she was cleaning her face with rubbing alcohol. And then she
Yeah.
smelled gas. So she went to go to the stove.
And she put her face like an inch away from the stove and tried to light it, and then oh whoops, now my face is on fire. So then she's like running around the house. She's trying to, and you know what? I'm gonna tell you, there was an 8-year-old kid in our movie theater, and this 8-year-old kid was smarter than this person in the movie. I heard the kid yell out, "Why didn't you put your head in the sink?" An 8-year-old said that. And I was like, you know what? You're right. You're right. Um, but no, this aunt, she runs out of the house and she like trips and hits her, she like gets her face right in line with the for sale sign out in her front yard and it plunges through her face. And then that's how she dies.
Yep.
Ridiculous.
A very dramatic series of events led to her end,
Yeah,
which we see later that for sale sign is still there, just covered in blood. Nobody bothered to replace it.
right. Uh, Also, so, Hal is hanging out with his son, Petey, at the motel. There's also like all these random deaths happening all over the place. That just the media and society can't explain. And we see like a montage of like 5 of them.
Yeah.
Somebody is messing with the monkey, basically, and we don't know what is going on.
One of which Hal sees at the motel. That's probably the most crazy one, or the one that they focus on the most, is he's walking
Oh,
around
yeah.
by the pool and you can see the his unit in the motel had the heat cranked to high when it's like in the middle of summer, and so he turned the AC on, and the AC on the motel roof is like, it's going back and forth. It's not it's a cheap motel, right? And it winds up falling and electrocuting the swimming pool right as this lady, this like beautiful lady he's starstruck over, is about to jump in, and he tells her to stop, and of course it's too late, so she jumps in and just explodes and
It makes me wonder if that's how it would actually happen.
splattered all over him. I don't know. I don't know that you'd explode like that. I couldn't tell you. I don't know.
I don't know the physics. I'd have to go to the health tutor lab and ask them, "Hey, I saw this horror movie this weekend and this lady exploded from like this overly big situation of a toaster in a bathtub. Is this really how it works?"
Uh, they're gonna be like, "Well, why are you asking?"
I'm just curious. I want to know how accurate the movie was. But part of me thinks it was just over the top because of the style that they were trying to fit.
Yeah,
Because even when she exploded, there was like a part of her, like a leg or something, that flew at our main character.
like a full leg. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Our next death we see pretty quick. It's when the realtor is trying to show him around the house because he's looking for the monkey, right? He doesn't know that the monkey's not there. Bill told him to go look for it, even though Bill already had it.
I'm pretty sure
Um,
this is in the trailer too.
okay. Uh, would you like to cover this one?
Yeah, basically the realtor is kind of going around the house showing, Hal and PD around the house, and they get to uh, a locked closet, and she's trying to unlock it. And once she does unlock it, uh, she opens the doors, and a shotgun basically falls down and explodes her. Needless to say, there's a lot of body explosions in this movie.
Yeah, and we see him take a piece of her finger out of his mouth. It's really
Yep,
gross.
that was another scene where the 8-year-old said, "Mama, don't look," when he pulled the finger out of his mouth.
I still can't believe those people brought that young of a kid to this thing. This thing's rated R, like it's gory.
I was a little surprised too, but all to their own, I suppose.
There was some other adult topics too, like the kids in health class learning about puberty and stuff like that, that like the kid was pretty young to be there for, but I mean, that's what the parents chose.
Yeah.
So where do we go from here, right?
I think we basically like start to really roll into towards the end of the film because, Hal is getting these phone calls from Bill about, coming to, meet him and stuff. And so well, no, Hal is like, he goes through the phone book. I'm trying to piece this all back together because remember, I didn't care for the movie, so I closed my eyes a couple of times too. Um, Not because I didn't want to see what was on film, but because I'd rather rest. He was going through the phone book and I forget what name he was looking for, but he saw like Mrs. Monkey or something.
I think he was trying to look for his brother's first and last name, but he finds Mrs. Monkey and realizes it must be them.
Yeah, so then he calls and gets in touch with his brother, which, like I said, rolls towards the end of the film. He, his brother Bill, basically lives in like this abandoned building. And so Hal goes there with his son Petey and the weird guy Thrasher. Also, I guess his name is Thrasher or Ricky. Um, just looking at IMDb.
Yeah.
And
Well,
so,
he the bad haircut guy took them there at gunpoint because he wants the monkey back and Bill won't give it to him because he thinks the monkey reminds him of his dad. And so he's trying to impersonate a policeman so that they would get him the monkey back. But Bill is saying, I want Petey to turn this monkey because I want Hal to die because Hal killed our mom.
right. So Petey goes in first, and he's doing his thing with Bill. We do get another kill here because once Petey goes in there and they, turn the key, there is a hornet's nest. I think it's a hornet.
I thought it
Right.
was a wasp, but it was a
Wasp.
big paper nest.
Yeah, I'm not a zoologist. I don't know all the differences, but needless to say, there's a big nest and a bunch of stingers right there. And so, what a shame would it be for that thing to, get knocked down, which that's kind of one of the weird powers of this monkey is that the branch just got like pushed down further and further. Like nothing was touching it, but the power of the monkey was, you know, making that branch go down. Um, I can't remember. Was it that the thing fell on the car and that's why there was a hole in the windshield, or was it because he shot it?
He was playing around with a gun, itching his hat, and like it went off.
Mm, that makes sense. Because then that puts the hole in the windshield, which also makes these insects very, very upset. So then they fly into the car and then they like fly into his mouth and all of his, even maybe even his nose, like they just pile into his body and just destroy him, needless to say. Which then makes Hal want to go inside. And the way Petey got inside was by using like a pet trap door. So
The
with
doggy
him,
door.
yeah, so when he is small enough to get through, great. But when Hal tried to get through, like he got midway through there, and then his son was like, "Oh, let me just open the door for you and let him in." So then they have their final confrontation with Bill. This is kind of where we get to find out why Bill was so mad at Hal. Like when he reveals, "Hey, I know that you were trying to kill me when you actually killed our mom, and I was, he was pissed off that his brother was the reason that his mom died, so that's why he wanted to get back at him all these years. Anything else that was really necessary from that, aside from when they go to finally
Just that this place
reconcile? It's
is, yeah, just that
awkward.
this place is super booby trapped. It's kind of like the Goonies when they're going through the mines, right? And there's little booby traps everywhere. The monkey also goes on some sort of a killing spree and like takes down a bunch of planes and makes the town go on fire.
Yeah. He like does the fastest drum roll he's ever done at this point, and like you said, causes all those problems. But yeah, like when they finally see eye to eye with one another, we get like this is something that I would expect like in the Sonic movie with Jim Carrey because his character is, funny and just weird. But like Bill is on the ground and Hal is trying to help him up, and Bill just keeps doing the Ray, put your hand out, and then and like putting it behind his head,
You know
and
why he did that, right?
because he's a jerk.
Because, well, yes, but because when they were kids and the nerdy one was trying to describe how his brother was cool, he said that that was one of the things his brother did. Like when they were kids, that was a thing. And now here they are, they haven't seen each other in like 25 years, and that's still a thing.
Yep. And so he does it one time, and then he goes to grab his hand again, and he does it again. And me, as an audience member, was like, "Oh God, oh yeah, the rule of threes, I suppose. He better take it this third time." And sure enough, that's when he took it. Is when, we had to sit there and watch it three times.
I I thought it was pretty funny.
I know. By that time, I had been checking my clock on my phone a couple of times of what time is it? Is this movie almost over? But.
I think
I
this is just one of those things of it's so stupid, it's funny.
I could have just been a grump, quite honestly, about the movie, but yeah, I was ready for this movie to wrap it up. And so, like Sarah said earlier, with with the fact that Hal only had his son Petey for like a week, maybe it could have been a nice way to end this movie where they actually go to this horror haven theme park. But no, the way that they end this movie is that, they're trying to drive back to
Well, don't
wherever
forget
they
what happens to Bill.
I forget what happens to Bill.
The booby traps of the like swords come at him right before they hold hands and like, they are about to make up and he gets killed.
Oh, I did not remember that,
The
quite
monkey did
honestly.
the final kill, so they can't really be friends anymore because now the brother's dead.
Interesting. The final scene is that Petey and, well, Hal is driving, and Petey they're trying to, drive back to wherever they want to be. And when they get to this stoplight, they not only do they see, like the airplane crashing and random people running around because there's like, I think there was even a kid in like a stroller that was on fire or something like that. They see what I interpret as Death himself, on a horse going by and he looks at Hal and looks at Petey and then just keeps on going by. I don't know how he couldn't be Death or the devil or just some sort of entity that's evil because he looked like he was from Game of Thrones, like winter is coming. He looked like one of those dudes. So I think that's what he was. But after he passes through, we see like a school bus come by with a bunch of cheerleaders, and they're all cheering out the window. And then a semi comes through and just obliterates them as it drives by. And then the movie cuts. It was like one of the weirdest endings to a movie I've seen in a long time. And we've seen a lot of movies as of late, as of once we started doing this on YouTube.
It was an odd ending, that's for sure.
But yeah, that's basically the movie in a nutshell. I definitely will not be watching this again. I would much rather watch other Stephen King movies. Do you think I guess I would have to watch the short. It makes me wonder if the original short itself was that somewhat comedic, or was this like interpretation that the writer and well, I think the director is the same person, but the people that were working on it, did they come up with this idea of it being comedic, or was the short itself comedic? Because that could totally be on me for why I didn't like this movie.
I don't know, but what I can say, because I just found this out. So Stephen King wrote the short. The guy who wrote the script for the movie, or like wrote the movie, is the uncle that they went to go live with.
Wow, interesting.
Yep.
All right. Is there anything else that you want to mention about the monkey?
I think we've talked about it long enough.
Are you going to be first in line for Monkey 2 if it comes out?
I don't know about first in line, but I would be curious.
I would say that I think this movie will make good money. It's at least its first weekend, just because, well, Rotten Tomatoes says it's a really good movie. I can tell you that. 78% critics, 61% audience. So it is officially fresh, and the popcorn meter is going great.
Yeah, IMDb out of 6.7 thousand reviews, it's sitting at a 6.6 out of 10, which is okay.
Yeah. All right, well, that was our talk on the monkey. If you enjoyed this type of video, even though if you really like the monkey, I apologize for all the ripping into it that we did. But if you enjoyed this type of video, make sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Drop us a like if you like the video and drop us a comment letting us know your thoughts on the monkey. How wrong am I, or how amazingly correct I was? Or were you kind of in the middle like where Sarah was? And then, as always, everybody, thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.